Let's face it, photography is boring. Whether you're a beginner photographer or a seasoned veteran who's been shooting for longer than I've been alive, we all go through photographic funks in our journey with this medium we call photography. Now, recently, my business partner and best friend Jared and I chopped this very same subject up on our podcast, Faith in Frames, which I'll link in the description below. Go check it out. But today I want to give you 5 ways to get out of your creative funk and make photography fun again. We are having fun. Photography can be fun. Sometimes recording is not fun. The first way that we're going to make photography not boring anymore is we're going to change our environment. Now, I live in the beautiful Appalachian Mountains, and yes, it's pronounced Appalachia for those of you who aren't from here. But as beautiful as my landscape is, I sometimes get bored of photographing trees and mountains and cows and landscapes. So for me, it's a good thing to go into more urban environments, cityscapes, things like that, because I think differently about the subject matter that I'm photographing at that point in time. On the inverse of that, the same can be said if you're living in a city or urban environment. Go out to a rural or remote location and enjoy the minimalistic compositions that you're able to achieve in a rural environment. The second thing that we're going to do to make photography not boring anymore is we are going to do photo challenges. One of the worst things you can do for your photography long-term is to have no goals within your craft. If we're not constantly challenging ourselves or constantly learning, sometimes we don't improve. And so photographic challenges can be very important and very vital. Now, what do I mean by a photographic challenge? Well, it's as easy as putting a prompt into Google or ChatGPT or any sort of software to give you ideas for what to photograph. A great photo challenge that I personally enjoy doing is photographing colors. So whenever I'm out shooting, if my color that day is yellow, I'm only going to photograph things that are yellow or closely related to yellow, which will give me a singular idea for that set from the day. It also really helps me zone in and focus on my environment when I'm shooting versus just kind of capturing what's in front of me. I am actively seeking subject matter, which can be good. It helps us think when we're out photographing. The third way to make photography more fun and not boring is to change from color to black and white, or even the inverse of that. If you're a black and white photographer, maybe try shooting only color. Again, there's a different thought process whenever we're shooting color versus whenever we're shooting black and white. Black and white photography specifically is a great way to help you understand tonal values in light, how light interacts with your subject matter, how your highlights, shadows, midtones, darks, lights, whites, and blacks all interact with each other within a photographic composition. I think it's very important to understand lighting, and black and white photography is great for this, especially if you're bored with colors. Now, on the inverse of that, color photography is a great way to help you understand things like color contrast and how different colors interact with each other. And all of these things, again, are just designed to help us get out of that boring photography rut that we can sometimes find ourselves in. This tip right here is one that I have absolutely fallen in love with, especially over the past couple of years, and that's changing your medium entirely. If you are primarily a digital photographer, I think it's a great idea to go back to the old days and try shooting film. And one of the biggest reasons for this is there are so many more variables when shooting film that you're able to mess up, which in turn help you be better as a photographer. The one thing that I love about shooting film, especially when I'm on my mechanical cameras that don't have light meters or any assistance to help me, I actually have to understand how to properly expose an image. I have to know that if I want my film to turn out the way I want it to be, I need to meter for the shadows so that my shadows are not dark and dingy and lacking information. Inversely to that, if I'm a film shooter, it might be a good idea to shoot digital because digital acts almost the opposite to film in the sense that I want to shoot for my highlights, which means I'm going to expose my highlights and let my shadows go a little bit darker so I can raise those in post. Those are things that whenever you switch mediums, it helps you think differently as a photographer and how exposure actually works. I think when it comes to the actual look of film, to me, that's less important because there's many different ways to get a film look, even with digital. But with film, for me, it's more so the thinking on how I want to expose an image and what are the steps that I need to take in order to get that result that I'm looking for. This one may be a little bit of an outlier, but I would say change formats entirely. And what I mean by that is if you're primarily shooting in a 3:2 aspect ratio or 16:9, I would challenge you to change that up. One of my absolute favorite types of photography is panoramic 65 by 24 X-Pan cropped photography. I love the wide, dare I say it, cinematic nature of the X-Pan cameras and how the panoramic view renders a scene. Now this may be something that's a little bit off the wall, but I would challenge you to shoot and crop your images in different aspect ratios. Again, going back to changing formats, whenever I started shooting film, and more recently medium format film, I have only been shooting 6x6 medium format TLR photography. A lot of people say that this is album cover photography because it's square, but it has caused me to think a whole lot differently about my compositions. And it's been a great challenge for me, and honestly, one of the things that got me out of a photographic funk, more so than the other things that I've mentioned in this video. Photography is such a great outlet as a creative person. Now, I do it full time, so it's also what I do for a living, but I love photographing as a hobby as well. And whether you're a hobbyist or a seasoned professional, it doesn't matter. We all go through those times where it gets a little bit boring. Hopefully these tips that I've given help you, and I would love to know what you do whenever you're bored with photography to make it fun again. As always, thank you for being a part of this channel. I love growing this community here on YouTube. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see you in the next.